Jake Martinez cleaned his hands with a dirty rag as he looked out the window of his repair shop. The small room sat on the edge of Kepler Station, a busy spaceport where ships came and went every day. Outside the thick glass window, stars filled the black space like tiny lights. But Jake was not looking at the stars. He was looking at something else. A dead ship floated in the distance. It had been there for 3 years now. The ship was huge, bigger than most of the trading vessels that stopped at the station. Its metal hull was dark and cold. No lights blinked on its surface. No signs of life came from inside. Everyone called it the ghost ship. Jake had asked about the ship when he first came to Kepler Station 6 months ago. The old alien who ran the repair shop before him had told him the story. The ship was called the Meridian. It belonged to the Hegemony Fleet, a group of 4 alien races that controlled this part of space. One day, the ship just stopped working. All 847 crew members died. The official report said the power core exploded by accident. Most people at the station did not like to talk about the Meridian. They said it was bad luck. Some of the alien traders would change course to avoid flying too close to it. But Jake was different. He was human, and humans were curious about things that did not make sense. Jake wiped grease off a wrench and set it down on his work table. His small repair shop was busy most days. Ships needed fixing, and Jake was good with his hands. He had learned to fix engines back on Earth before he came to space. Now he worked on alien ships with strange parts and weird designs. It was hard work, but he liked solving problems. The door to his shop opened with a soft hiss. Captain Linda Hayes walked in. She was the head of station security, a tough woman who had served in the Earth Navy before coming to Kepler Station. Her uniform was clean and pressed, and she wore a serious look on her face. "Jake," she said, "we need to talk." Jake looked up from his work table. "What about?" Linda walked to the window and pointed at the Meridian. "About that ship. I know you have been asking questions about it. So what if I have? People are starting to notice. The Hegemony patrol ships come by twice a week to check on it. They do not like it when humans get too interested in their business." Jake crossed his arms. "It has been floating out there for 3 years. If it was so important, why have they not moved it?" "Because it is dangerous," Linda said. "The radiation from the power core explosion makes it unsafe to board. Anyone who goes near it will die." Jake looked at the dark ship again. Something about Linda's words did not feel right. If the ship was so dangerous, why did he never see any warning beacons around it? Why did small trading ships fly close to it without any problems? "Have you ever seen the official report?" Jake asked. Linda frowned. "What report?" "The one about what happened to the Meridian, the accident report. That is classified Hegemony information. Humans are not allowed to see it." This made Jake even more curious. If it was just a simple accident, why keep the details secret? He had read about many ship accidents during his time working on space vessels. Most of the time, the reports were shared so other ships could avoid the same problems. Linda walked closer to Jake's work table. "I know what you are thinking, Jake, but you need to stop. The Hegemony does not like questions. They especially do not like questions from humans." "Why not?" "Because we are the new species in this part of space. We have only been here for 20 years. The Hegemony has controlled this sector for over 500 years. They let humans trade here, but they do not trust us." Jake picked up another tool and started cleaning it. "Maybe they have good reason not to trust us." "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe we ask too many questions. Maybe we see things they do not want us to see." Linda was quiet for a moment. Outside the window, a Hegemony patrol ship glided past the Meridian without stopping. It did not scan the dead ship or check for problems. It just flew by like the Meridian was not there. "Jake," Linda said, "promise me you will not do anything stupid." "Like what?" "Like trying to board that ship." Jake looked at her with surprise. Why would I do that? Because I know humans, and I know you. You are the type of person who needs to know the truth, even when the truth is dangerous. Jake put down his tools and faced Linda directly. What if the truth is important? What if people died for a reason that had nothing to do with an accident? Then it is not our business. We are just humans trying to make a living in alien space. We do not have the power to fight the hegemony. Linda left the shop, but her words stayed with Jake. He spent the rest of the day working on a broken engine from a cargo ship, but his mind kept going back to the Meridian. That night, he sat in his small living space above the shop and looked up everything he could find about ship power cores. Modern ships had many safety systems to prevent accidents. If one system failed, another would take over. If two systems failed, a third would shut down the whole ship safely. For all systems to fail at once, something very bad had to happen, or someone had to make it happen on purpose. Jake made his decision. Tomorrow night, when the station was quiet and most people were sleeping, he would take his small maintenance pod and fly to the Meridian. He would find out what really happened to the ghost ship. Jake checked his suit one more time before leaving his maintenance pod. The small ship had taken him 20 minutes to reach the Meridian. Now he floated next to the dead vessel, looking for a way inside. His suit lights cut through the darkness, showing him the huge metal hull covered in small dents and scratches. The Meridian was much bigger up close than it looked from his shop window. Jake guessed it was at least 800 meters long. The ship's design was strange, with curves and bumps that made it look almost alive. This was typical of hegemony ships. The 4 alien races that built them liked to mix technology with biology. Jake found an airlock on the side of the ship. The heavy metal door was stuck halfway open, bent at an odd angle. He squeezed through the gap and turned on his suit's main lights. The beam showed him a long corridor with walls that looked like they were made of metal and something that might have been bone. The air inside the ship was thin and cold. Jake's suit readings showed very low pressure and no oxygen, but as he moved deeper into the ship, something strange happened. His air detector started picking up pockets of breathable atmosphere. This should not be possible. A dead ship could not maintain life support for 3 years. Jake followed the corridor toward what he thought was the center of the ship. The walls were covered with controls and displays that he did not recognize. Some of them still glowed with a faint light. This meant the ship still had some power, even though it appeared dead from the outside. He found a large room that looked like a command center. Chairs were scattered around the floor. Some were broken. Dark stains covered the walls and floor. Jake tried not to think about what the stains might be. He looked for a computer terminal that still worked. Most of the displays were dark, but Jake found one that responded when he touched it. The screen showed symbols he could not read, but there were also some numbers and charts that looked familiar. Jake had learned to read basic hegemony computer systems during his months at Kepler Station. The data on the screen made him stop and stare. These were not accident reports. They were system logs from the day the Meridian died. And according to the logs, the power core had not exploded by accident. Someone had caused it to fail on purpose. Jake copied the data to his suit's storage unit. He needed to find more information. The ship's main computer core would be in the engineering section. Jake had studied hegemony ship designs, and he knew where to look. The corridors leading to engineering were darker than the rest of the ship. Jake's lights showed more signs of damage here. Walls were cracked, and strange fluids had leaked from broken pipes. The smell inside his suit was getting worse, even with the air filters running. Jake found the engineering bay after 10 minutes of walking through twisted passages. The room was huge, filled with machines that hummed quietly in the darkness. At the center stood the power core, a massive sphere covered in tubes and wires. It was still glowing with a soft blue light. This was impossible. If the core had exploded 3 years ago, there should be nothing left but wreckage. But here it was, still running at low power. Jake walked closer and checked the control panels around the core. The readings told him an incredible story. The power core was fine. It had never exploded. Instead, someone had used a computer virus to shut down all the ship's main systems. The virus was still there, hidden in the ship's memory banks like a sleeping monster. Jake studied the virus code on his portable scanner. He recognized some of the programming techniques. They were human methods, the kind taught in Earth military academies. Whoever had sabotaged the Meridian knew human computer systems very well. But why would a human attack a hegemony ship? And how did they get aboard in the first place? Jake searched through more of the ship's records, looking for crew lists and duty rosters. What he found made his blood run cold. The Meridian had not been on a normal patrol when it died. According to the secret files Jake discovered, the ship had been carrying detailed maps and information about human colonies in the outer rim of space. Attack plans, target lists, population numbers. The hegemony had been planning to attack human settlements. The Meridian was part of that plan. Jake felt sick as he read through the files. The attack would have killed millions of innocent people. Men, women, and children living on farming colonies and mining stations throughout the outer rim. The hegemony saw humans as a threat that needed to be removed. A sound echoed through the engineering bay. Jake froze and listened. It came again, a metallic clang from somewhere deep in the ship. Jake turned off his main lights and switched to his suit's night vision. The green display showed him the empty room, but he could still hear sounds coming from other parts of the ship. Jake was not alone on the Meridian. He moved carefully toward the source of the noise, staying close to the walls and trying to make no sound. His heart was beating fast, and his hands felt sweaty inside his suit gloves. If there were hegemony soldiers on the ship, he was in serious trouble. The sounds led him to a smaller room filled with storage containers and supplies. A figure in a damaged spacesuit was digging through boxes, looking for something. The person was human-sized, not like any of the hegemony species Jake had seen. Jake watched for several minutes before deciding to approach. He turned his lights back on and called out, "Hello, are you okay?" The figure spun around quickly, holding what looked like a weapon. But when the person saw Jake's human face through his helmet, the weapon lowered. "Who are you?" the person asked. The voice was male and spoke with an Earth accent. "My name is Jake Martinez. I came from Kepler Station to investigate this ship." The man stepped into Jake's light. His suit was old and patched in many places. His face was thin and covered with a long beard. He looked like he had not eaten well in a long time. "My name is Ben Carter," the man said. "I have been trapped on this ship for 3 years." Jake stared at him in shock. "You are the one who sabotaged the Meridian?" Ben nodded slowly. "Yes, I am. And I think you just saved my life by coming here. But now both of our lives are in danger. The hegemony patrol ships are coming back early tonight. I saw them on the long-range scanners 10 minutes ago." Jake looked around the dark room, his mind racing. He had come here looking for answers. And instead, he had found a human who had been fighting a secret war for 3 years. Now they were both trapped on a dead ship with enemy forces approaching. "We need to get out of here," Jake said. "No," Ben replied. "First, you need to understand what really happened here, and why the hegemony wants to kill every human in this sector of space." Ben Carter led Jake through the dark corridors to a hidden room deep inside the Meridian. The space was small but clean, with working lights and breathable air. Ben had turned this forgotten storage area into his home for 3 long years. "Sit down," Ben said, pointing to a makeshift chair made from ship parts. "I need to tell you everything, and we do not have much time." Jake looked around the room. Ben had collected supplies from all over the ship. Food containers, water recyclers, tools, and weapons were stacked against the walls. A small computer terminal showed displays that Jake could not understand. "How have you survived here for 3 years?" Jake asked. Ben sat down across from him. "Very carefully. This ship has emergency supplies scattered throughout different sections. I learned to move quietly and avoid the areas that still have security cameras working. The hegemony checks this ship sometimes, but they never do a complete search. Why not? Because they think everyone is dead. They want it to stay that way. Ben activated his computer terminal and showed Jake a series of documents and images. The files were marked with Earth military codes that Jake recognized from his time working on defense contracts. I was part of a secret Earth intelligence operation, Ben explained. My mission was to join the hegemony fleet as a human exchange officer. Many alien crews have humans working with them now. It makes trade and communication easier. Jake studied the documents on the screen. But you were really a spy. Yes. Earth Command suspected that the hegemony was planning something against human colonies. Our job was to gather evidence and report back. I had been on the Meridian for 2 years when I discovered the truth. Ben called up a new set of files. These showed maps of human settlements throughout the Outer Rim. Red marks indicated population numbers, defensive capabilities, and resource values. It looked like a military targeting system. The hegemony has been planning a complete extermination campaign against humanity, Ben said. Not just an attack, total genocide. They want to wipe us out before we become too strong. Jake felt cold as he looked at the data. Why? Humans have only been in this sector for 20 years. We are not a threat to them. That is exactly why they want to destroy us now. The hegemony has controlled this part of space for 5 centuries. They have seen young species grow powerful before. They learned that it is easier to eliminate a threat early than to fight a war later. Ben showed Jake intelligence reports about human technological advancement. In just 20 years, humans had developed faster ships, better weapons, and more efficient manufacturing than most species achieved in centuries. The 4 hegemony races are all old species, Ben continued. They stopped innovating long ago. They are comfortable with their power and their technology. But humans keep inventing new things. We ask questions that they stopped asking thousands of years ago. Jake understood now why the hegemony feared humanity. Humans were unpredictable. They solved problems in ways that other species had never considered. What was your original plan? Jake asked. I was supposed to copy all the attack plans and escape during the next supply run. But then I learned that the attack was starting sooner than we thought. The Meridian was going to lead the first strike against New Angeles Colony in just 2 weeks. Ben pulled up images of New Angeles, a farming colony with over 2 million human residents, men, women, and children who had no idea they were about to die. I could not wait for extraction. I had to stop the mission immediately. So I created a computer virus designed to disable the ship's weapons and communication systems. The plan was to make it look like a technical failure that would delay the attack. But something went wrong, Jake said. Ben nodded sadly. The hegemony uses biomechanical computers. They respond to software in ways that pure mechanical systems do not. My virus spread much further than I intended. Instead of just disabling weapons, it shut down life support, navigation, and artificial gravity. That killed the crew. All of them except me. I was in a sealed maintenance section when the life support failed. By the time I realized what was happening, everyone else was dead. Jake looked at the man across from him. Ben had lived with this guilt for 3 years, trapped on a ship full of corpses, knowing that he had saved millions of humans by accidentally killing hundreds of aliens. The hegemony patrol ships arrived 6 hours later, Ben continued. They found a dead ship and assumed the virus was some kind of accident. They decided to leave the Meridian here as a warning to other ships about the dangers of using biomechanical systems. But you had the evidence of their attack plans. Yes, but I was trapped with it. The patrol ships scan any vessel that leaves this area. If they detected the classified files in my possession, they would know that Earth had been spying on them. It would give them the excuse they needed to start the war immediately. Ben showed Jake his computer setup. He had spent 3 years analyzing the hegemony's complete battle plan. The attack on human colonies was more extensive than anyone on Earth could imagine. They have been preparing for this war for 10 years, Ben said. They have built secret weapon stockpiles, recruited allies from other sectors, and identified every human settlement in the galaxy. When they attack, it will not be a war. It will be extermination. Jake studied the data with growing horror. The hegemony planned to destroy not just the Outer Rim colonies, but eventually Earth itself. They wanted to eliminate humanity completely. How many people know about this? Jake asked. On Earth, no one. My handler was killed in a transport accident 6 months after I went missing. The operation was so secret that only 3 people knew about it. So if something happens to you, the evidence dies with you. That is correct. And the hegemony will be free to carry out their genocide without any warning. A new alarm started beeping on Ben's computer terminal. Red lights flashed on the display showing the space around the meridian. What is that? Jake asked. Ben's face went pale as he read the screen. Hegemony patrol ships, 3 of them, and they are not just passing by this time. They are heading directly for us. Jake felt his stomach drop. How do they know we are here? They must have detected your maintenance pod docked to the ship. Or maybe they have been monitoring communications and picked up signals from your equipment. Ben started shutting down his computer systems and gathering essential supplies into a travel pack. Either way, we have about 10 minutes before they start cutting through the hull. And this time, they are not going to assume everyone is dead. Jake looked around the small room that had been Ben's home for 3 years. What do we do? Ben handed Jake a weapon and a bag of emergency supplies. We run, and we hope that your maintenance pod is still working when we reach it. What about the evidence? The attack plans? Ben tapped his chest where Jake could see the outline of a data storage device under his suit. I carry it with me everywhere. If we can get off this ship and reach human space, we can warn Earth about what is coming. And if we do not make it? Ben checked his weapon and looked at Jake with grim determination. Then in 6 months, every human colony in the Outer Rim will be destroyed, and no one will know why. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the ship's hull. The hegemony boarding teams were already at work. Jake and Ben had very little time left. Ben and Jake moved quickly through the dark corridors of the meridian as the sound of cutting tools grew louder behind them. The hegemony boarding teams were making fast progress through the ship's outer hull. Soon, they would be inside, searching for whoever had dared to board their secret weapon. Stay close to me, Ben whispered, as they ran through a section filled with broken machinery. I know these passages better than anyone. The hegemony troops will use the main corridors, but we can take shortcuts through maintenance areas. Jake followed Ben through a narrow opening between 2 large pipes. His suit scraped against the metal as he squeezed through. Behind them, he could hear voices speaking in the clicking language of the hegemony species. How many troops do you think they brought? Jake asked when they reached a wider passage. At least 30, Ben replied. Maybe more. They are not taking chances this time. Ben led Jake up a ladder to a higher level of the ship. The metal rungs were slippery with some kind of alien fluid that had leaked from damaged systems. Jake tried not to think about what it might be. At the top of the ladder, Ben stopped and listened carefully. The sounds of the search teams seemed to be coming from below and to their left. Ben pointed in the opposite direction. Your maintenance pod is about 200 meters that way, Ben said. But we have a problem. What kind of problem? Ben showed Jake a small scanner he carried. The device showed heat signatures throughout the ship. Red dots indicated the positions of the hegemony troops, and there were more of them than Jake had expected. They have teams at every major exit point, Ben explained. They knew exactly where to position themselves to cut off escape routes. Someone planned this operation very carefully. Jake studied the scanner display. The red dots were moving in a coordinated pattern, sweeping through the ship section by section. It was a professional military search, not a random investigation. They know we are here, Jake realized. This is not about my maintenance pod. They have been planning to board this ship for a while. Ben nodded grimly. I think you are right, which means they probably know about me too. They may have been watching this ship more carefully than I thought. A new sound echoed through the corridor ahead of them. Heavy footsteps and the mechanical whir of powered armor. Jake had never seen hegemony battlesuits in person, but he had heard they were nearly indestructible. Change of plans, Ben said. We cannot go directly to your pod. We need to find another way. Ben led Jake through a maze of service tunnels and emergency passages. The spaces were barely wide enough for a human to crawl through, but they allowed the two men to move unseen past the search teams. After 20 minutes of difficult travel, they reached a section of the ship that Jake had not seen before. The walls here were different, covered with organic-looking growths that pulsed with faint light. What is this place? Jake asked. The Biomechanical Control Center, Ben explained. This is where the ship's living systems interface with the mechanical ones. The hegemony troops will not want to damage this area, so they will be more careful here. Ben activated a control panel that looked like it was made of bone and metal fused together. The strange surface responded to his touch, bringing up displays that showed the status of various ship systems. I have an idea, Ben said, but it is dangerous. More dangerous than getting shot by hegemony battlesuits? Ben smiled for the first time since Jake had met him. Good point. Ben's fingers moved over the biomechanical controls with practiced skill. Jake watched as system displays changed from red to yellow to green. Somewhere in the ship, machinery began to hum with new power. What are you doing? Jake asked. Remember the computer virus I used to sabotage the ship 3 years ago? It is still here, sleeping in the memory banks. I am waking it up. Jake understood immediately. You are going to turn the ship's defenses against the boarding teams. The Meridian was a warship. It has automated defense systems designed to repel boarders. The virus will make those systems think the hegemony troops are enemies. Ben finished his work at the control panel, just as the sound of weapons fire erupted from other parts of the ship. The Meridian's internal defense guns had come online and were engaging the boarding teams. Will that stop them? Jake asked. It will slow them down and divide their attention, but we still need to reach your maintenance pod before they figure out how to shut down the defenses. Ben led Jake through more passages toward the area where Jake had docked his small ship. The sounds of battle echoed through the Meridian as hegemony troops fought against the ship's automated systems. Jake could hear explosions and the distinctive whine of energy weapons. When they finally reached the docking area, Jake's heart sank. His maintenance pod was still attached to the ship, but it had been damaged. Burn marks covered its hull, and one of its engine pods was completely destroyed. They found it, Ben said, and they made sure we cannot use it to escape. Jake examined his ruined ship with growing despair. The pod might still have life support, but it would never fly again. They were trapped on the Meridian with hostile forces hunting them. Wait, Ben said suddenly. I have another idea. Follow me. Ben ran toward a different section of the docking area. Jake followed, dodging pieces of debris that had fallen from damaged ceiling panels. They reached a large bay that Jake had not noticed before. Emergency escape pods, Ben explained, pointing to a row of small ships mounted in launch tubes. Every hegemony warship carries them. I have been saving them for 3 years, waiting for the right moment. Jake looked at the escape pods with hope. They were small, only designed for 1 or 2 people, but they appeared to be intact. Ben began working on the launch controls for the nearest pod. These are designed for short-range evacuation, Ben said as he prepared the launch sequence. The nearest human outpost is 4 days away at maximum burn. It will be close, but we should have enough life support. The sound of approaching footsteps made both men freeze. Hegemony troops were getting close to their position. Jake could hear their alien voices growing louder as they searched the nearby corridors. How long do you need? Jake asked. 2 more minutes, Ben replied. his hands moving quickly over the pod's control systems. Jake picked up his weapon and moved to the entrance of the launch bay. Through the opening, he could see lights moving in the darkness. The search teams had found them. "Ben," Jake called quietly. "They are here." The first hegemony soldier appeared at the entrance to the bay. The alien warrior wore powered armor that made him look like a mechanical monster. When he saw Jake, he raised his weapon. Jake fired first. His shot hit the alien in the chest, but the armor absorbed most of the impact. The soldier stumbled but did not fall. More troops appeared behind him. 30 more seconds, Ben called out. Jake kept firing as the hegemony troops advanced into the bay. His weapon was not powerful enough to penetrate their armor, but it forced them to take cover behind ship parts and equipment. Energy bolts flew past Jake's head as the aliens returned fire. One shot came so close that it burned the side of his helmet. The smell of melted plastic filled his suit. "Now!" Ben shouted. Jake ran toward the escape pod as Ben activated the launch sequence. The two men threw themselves into the small ship just as the launch tube's doors began to close. The pod shot out of the meridian like a bullet, accelerating rapidly away from the dead ship. Through the small window, Jake could see the hegemony patrol ships moving to intercept them. But the escape pod was small and fast, and Ben was an excellent pilot. "Can they catch us?" Jake asked as Ben pushed the pod's engines to maximum power. Ben checked the navigation display. "Not if we reach human space first, but it will be very close." Behind them, the meridian grew smaller in the distance, but Jake could still see the lights of the hegemony ships pursuing them. The chase had begun, and everything depended on whether a small escape pod could outrun 3 warships across 4 days of empty space. The escape pod raced through space toward the human mining station called New Denver. Jake watched Ben work at the small control panel, pushing their tiny ship to its limits while carefully managing their limited fuel and life support. "How are we doing?" Jake asked on the second day of their journey. Ben checked the displays with tired eyes. "The good news is that the hegemony ships turned back yesterday. They will not follow us into human space. The bad news is that we are using more oxygen than I calculated." Jake looked at the life support readings. They had enough air for maybe 3 days, but they still needed 4 days to reach New Denver. The numbers did not look good. "Can we reduce power to other systems?" Jake suggested. "I already have. We are running on minimum everything except engines and navigation. If we go any lower, we will freeze to death before we run out of air." Ben had not slept since they escaped from the meridian. Jake could see the exhaustion in his face, but Ben refused to rest while he was piloting their only chance of survival. "Let me take over for a few hours," Jake offered. "I know how to fly basic ships." Ben showed Jake the controls. The escape pod was simple compared to the ships Jake usually worked on, but it was still alien technology. Ben taught him how to read the navigation displays and what to do if any warning lights came on. While Ben slept, Jake thought about everything he had learned on the ghost ship. The hegemony was planning to kill millions of innocent humans, and only he and Ben knew about it. The weight of that knowledge felt heavier than the fear of dying in space. On the 3rd day, their air supply became a serious problem. Both men were breathing heavily, and the pod's atmosphere felt thick and stale. Ben had rigged an emergency oxygen generator using parts from their suits, but it only bought them a few extra hours. "There," Ben said, pointing at the navigation screen. "New Denver, we made it." Jake looked through the pod's small window and saw lights in the distance. The mining station looked like a small city built around a large asteroid. Ships came and went from its docking bays, and Jake had never been happier to see signs of human civilization. But their relief was short-lived. As they approached the station, Ben tried to contact the docking control center. His communications were answered by a suspicious voice. "Unknown vessel, state your identity and business." "This is Lieutenant Ben Carter, Earth Intelligence. I need to speak with your station commander immediately." There was a long pause before the voice replied. Hold your position. We are sending a security team to escort you. 2 armed ships approached their escape pod and guided them to an isolated docking bay. When Jake and Ben stepped out of their ship, they were surrounded by station security officers with weapons drawn. The station commander was a gray-haired man named Colonel Pete Andrews. He had served in the Earth Defense Forces for 30 years before taking the job at New Denver. His office was small but clean, with pictures of Earth on the walls. Your story is hard to believe, Andrews said after Ben had explained about the Meridian and the Hegemony attack plans. Ben placed his data storage device on the commander's desk. Everything is here. Battle plans, target lists, weapon specifications. The Hegemony has been planning this genocide for 10 years. Andrews connected the device to his computer and spent an hour reviewing the files. His face grew more serious as he read through the evidence. This is incredible, Andrews finally said. If this information is accurate, every human colony in the Outer Rim is in immediate danger. It is accurate, Ben replied, and the attack could begin at any time. We need to warn Earth Command immediately. Andrews activated his station's quantum communication system and established a secure link with Earth Defense Headquarters. The response came within minutes. Admiral Susan Clark, the head of Earth's military forces, appeared on the screen. Colonel Andrews, the Admiral said, we received your emergency transmission. Are you certain about this intelligence? Yes, ma'am. I have reviewed the evidence personally. The threat is real and immediate. Admiral Clark studied Ben's face through the screen. Lieutenant Carter, you have been listed as missing in action for 3 years. We need to verify your identity before we can act on this information. Ben provided his military service number and answered security questions that only the real Ben Carter would know. After 10 minutes, Admiral Clark was satisfied. If this intelligence is correct, the Admiral said, we need to evacuate the Outer Rim colonies immediately. But that will take weeks, and we do not have enough ships to move everyone. There may be another option, Jake said, speaking for the first time during the conversation. Everyone looked at him. Jake felt nervous talking to such high-ranking officers, but he knew his idea was important. The Hegemony thinks their attack plans are still secret, Jake explained. They do not know that Ben survived or that their plans have been discovered. If we can use that advantage, we might be able to turn their attack against them. Admiral Clark leaned forward. What do you mean? Set a trap. Let them think they are attacking defenseless colonies, but have our defense fleet waiting for them. When they arrive expecting easy targets, they will find prepared Earth forces instead. Ben smiled. It could work. The Hegemony has not fought a real war in centuries. They are expecting to face civilian ships and basic defensive systems, not military fleets. Admiral Clark considered this for several minutes. It is risky. If we fail, the colonies will be destroyed anyway. But if we succeed, we could end this threat permanently. What do you need from us? Ben asked. I need you both to come to Earth immediately. Our strategists will want to interview you about everything you learned, and we need to begin fleet mobilization within days. 3 weeks later, Jake stood on the observation deck of an Earth defense ship, watching the first battle of what historians would later call the Outer Rim War. The Hegemony attack fleet had arrived at the New Angeles system expecting to find defenseless farming colonies. Instead, they found 3 full Earth battle groups waiting for them. The battle lasted only 6 hours. The Hegemony ships were powerful but old, designed for fighting the wars of centuries past. The Earth fleet used new tactics and weapons that the alien commanders had never encountered. When it was over, the entire Hegemony attack force had been destroyed. Jake declined all the medals and honors that Earth Command offered him. Instead, he accepted a position designing defensive systems for civilian stations and colonies. His experience on the ghost ship had taught him that the most important battles were often fought by ordinary people who refused to look away when something was wrong. Ben disappeared back into the classified world of intelligence work, but not before making sure that Jake received full credit for the mission that saved millions of human lives. The official report stated that a civilian mechanic named Jake Martinez had shown extraordinary courage in boarding a dangerous derelict ship to uncover an alien conspiracy. The war that followed tested humanity's resolve and military capabilities, but it also proved something that Jake had always believed. Humans succeeded not because they were the strongest or smartest species in the galaxy, but because they never stopped asking questions and they never stopped fighting for what was right, even when the odds seemed impossible. The ghost ship Meridian was gone, destroyed by the hegemony to hide their secrets. But its legacy lived on in the courage of two humans who had refused to let genocide happen in silence. Jake often thought about that when he looked up at the stars from his new home on Earth. Somewhere out there, human colonies were safe because one mechanic had been too curious to ignore a mystery floating outside his window. The galaxy was a dangerous place, but it was also full of people willing to stand up against that danger. And that, Jake knew, was what made humanity truly special among the stars.